I am tightening the last bolt on the outer grate when the radio starts repeating the same county alert for the third time in 20 minutes. Not louder than before, not more urgent in tone, just more often, which is worse. I keep the wrench on the nut another second, test it with my weight, then step back onto the ledge and look down the wash. The old service road ends in a broken drop of dirt, exposed roots, and cracked culvert pipe 30 feet below me. Nothing with wheels comes past that point anymore. That is why I bought this land. That is why I cut a shelter into the rock above it. That is why I kept working after everyone else said I was wasting money on a place no sane man would choose to live. The grate is a steel frame with expanded metal skin, hinged on one side of the ledge so I can swing it across the opening over the stair cut. It is not my main defense. It is a delay. One more thing that has to be pried, cut, or hammered while I am inside with time to decide what comes next. The real defense is the approach. A washed-out road, a narrow shelf, a 40-foot section of bad ground with nothing to grab except loose brush and broken stone. And above that, my ledge, my door, my sight lines, my rules. I do not need a crowd to fail before I know a crowd cannot live here. The land says it for me. The shelter sits in a basalt face on the north side of a shallow canyon in eastern Oregon, far enough from the interstate that I do not hear traffic unless the wind swings right. Far enough from the nearest town that a grocery run takes planning even when the world is normal. I bought the parcel at a county auction 3 years ago because nobody wanted it. The deed map called it inaccessible recreational land. The old fire road had washed out years earlier, and the previous owner had stopped paying taxes after one bad winter. I walked the parcel with a surveyor's map, saw the rock, saw the line of sun, saw the spring seep farther uphill, and knew exactly what I wanted. Not comfort, not a weekend cabin. A place with only one answer to the question of access, and that answer being me. I work as a remote systems engineer, industrial controls, sensor networks, off-grid monitoring, backup power design for places people forget until something fails. Water districts, mining outfits, relay sites, cold storage yards. I used to spend half my year in airports and chain hotels, fixing problems for companies that called only after some manager ignored the first 10 warnings. Then I started turning work down. Then I started charging more so fewer people would say yes. Then I started staying out here longer between jobs until this place stopped feeling temporary. I still took contracts when I needed cash for steel, batteries, sealant, fuel tanks, anchors, cable, solar glass, and concrete. Every hour I billed went back into the rock. I did not build a bunker under flat ground with a yard on top. I cut a room into stone and poured a reinforced front wall with one steel door, one sealed utility chase, 2 narrow vents hidden behind rockfall mesh, and a slit window so thin a bird would pass it without seeing glass. The main room is 14 feet wide, 22 feet deep, and a little over 8 feet high at the front. Behind it, separated by another door, are a battery room, a dry pantry, a compact wash space, and a work alcove with tools hung where I can find them in the dark. Water comes from a buried cistern fed by the spring line uphill and backed by roof catchment from a low concrete overhang that blends into the rock. Power comes from solar panels mounted low on adjustable brackets above the ledge and from a small diesel generator in a baffled compartment I only use when I must. Heat is propane and insulation. Not fancy, just tight. People hear a description like that and think paranoia. The word came up so often I stopped arguing with it. Men at supply counters smirked when I ordered another pallet of mortar. A woman I dated for 4 months called the shelter a monument to distrust and left before winter. My older brother said I was living at the edge of a landslide because I could not stand being told no. He was partly right. I do not like disorder inside arm's reach. I do not like doors I did not hang. I do not like neighbors who want to borrow tools and end up seeing too much. I also watched enough small failures stack into bigger ones over the years to stop pretending systems fix themselves. Roads wash out, pumps fail, crews do not show, people lie to calm markets, and crowds turn ordinary places stupid in under an hour. None of that requires prophecy. It just requires memory. The alert on the radio ends, then starts again. Temporary restrictions on non-essential travel in multiple counties due to a public health emergency. No disease name, no details. No explanation for why that same station spent the morning talking about heat, hay prices, and school board money before switching to a voice that sounds assembled by committee. I crouch by the panel box beside the inner door and flip through camera feeds. One trail camera covers the lower bend in the road. One covers the washout. One covers the shelf below my ledge. One covers the spring line uphill. Grainy daylight images, nothing moving except brush. Good. I shut the monitor off and listen to the silence that follows a broadcast, when the world outside still has not decided what the message means. I sleep inside most nights now, even when the weather is mild. That started 2 months ago after I noticed too many odd shipments crossing my work channels. Refrigeration units diverted to county lots, backup generators going to facilities that already had them, sealed procurement orders for disinfectant sprayers and temporary fencing. I do contract review for utility control systems. I am not supposed to see the whole picture. That is the trick with big systems. Every person sees only the square foot of floor under his boots. But if you spend years reading parts lists, timing requests, and comparing how people behave when nothing is wrong against how they behave when they know something is wrong, patterns start to show. I did not know what was coming. I knew enough to buy another 6 months of canned food, medical supplies, bleach, lamp oil, coffee, batteries, wire, hand soap, and fuel stabilizer. That was why I drove to town 3 days ago and bought flour, rice, dog food, even though I do not own a dog, and every box of 12-gauge buckshot the hardware store would sell me without calling attention to itself. I hate shopping in clusters. But clusters are what people notice least when shelves begin thinning. I wore my oldest work shirt, paid cash where I could, and kept my voice flat. The woman at the feed counter said there had been a fight at the urgent care on the highway. A patient bit a nurse. That was the story then, and 2 deputies had shown up. She laughed when she said it, not because it was funny, but because it sounded too stupid to place anywhere else. The man behind me in line said his cousin's warehouse in Boise had lost half a shift to flu quarantine, and every truck driver he knew was already looking for excuses not to go near the coast. We all did what people do, took one odd thing, folded it into a joke, and paid for our bags. Yesterday, I stayed on the ledge and finished resealing the outer utility hatch. Today, I am checking the anchor bolts on the bridge winch, and the county is suddenly repeating travel restrictions. That is enough. I pull the wrench out of my back pocket, step through the steel grate, and go inside. The first thing I do is fill every spare container in the wash space, even though the cistern is already above 3/4. The second thing I do is top off the day tank for the generator, then move 2 more diesel cans from the storage niche into the battery room where the temperature stays steady. The third thing I do is lay my rifle, shotgun, sidearm, and cleaning kit on the workbench and inspect each one without rushing. Not because I expect to fight today, because routine keeps stupidity away. By noon, the radio has changed again. One station goes dead. Another carries a state official saying hospitals are under unusual strain and residents should remain home unless travel is necessary. A caller pushes through on a local AM show and says the interstate outside Pendleton is blocked with wrecks and ambulances. The host cuts him off, comes back from static, and talks about giving verified information only. That is another bad sign. Verified information always arrives late. False calm gets priority until false calm cannot stand up anymore. I eat a sandwich standing over the sink, then go outside with binoculars and scan the south ridgeline. Smoke in the distance. Not one fire, several. Thin gray at first, then darker plumes farther west. Not wildfire columns. Too broken up. Too low. Structure smoke. I shift the glass down toward the county road in the valley. A line of vehicles crawls east, then stops. Some turn into a field entrance and try to cut around whatever has jammed the road. Two make it. One sinks to the axle in irrigation mud. Men get out and push. No one moves with normal patience. Doors slam. People point, reverse, lurch, stop again. One pickup cuts across the shoulder and nearly tips. I stay on the ledge until my calves start to ache. Then I go in and lower the bridge. The bridge is not much to look at. A narrow aluminum and steel span just wide enough for one careful person with a pack. One side pins to my ledge. The other seats into a receiver I set in concrete years ago on the far edge of the washout. I built it in sections so I could haul it up with a come-along, assemble it myself, and retract it with a manual winch hidden behind brush. From the road below, unless a man stands in the exact place and looks with intent, the bridge is hard to spot when folded back against the rock. I crank it in until the nose clears the gap, lock the drum, and cover the handle with the false panel I made from scrap plate. Then I pull a secondary ladder section up from the lower steps and chain it on the inside. My world shrinks to a door, a slit window, 4 cameras, 1 radio, and what I already stored. The first real proof arrives at 4:17 in the afternoon, not because a government voice finally says the word outbreak, but because my brother calls. He has ignored 3 of my messages this week. He does not call out here unless he wants something or unless something is wrong enough to strip pride out of the way. The signal comes through the roof antenna, clipped and dirty. Owen, he says, and there is no small talk in it. You at that place? Am here. There is noise behind him. Horns, a woman shouting, something metallic hitting pavement. Don't come to town, he says. Stay put. Stay there. People are losing it at the hospital. Sheriff's office is telling everyone to shelter in place. I think it's in the jail too. I'm heading back to the house. Back to town or out of it. House. Where else? His house sits in a subdivision west of town, with 1 grocery store, 1 pharmacy, and 300 people who all believe knowing one another is the same as being prepared. I close my eyes for 1 second. Come here. Silence. Then a short laugh with nothing good in it. You know Laura won't. Then take the girls and come without waiting on Laura to agree. She's already saying I am overreacting. A crash in the background. Glass, maybe. Then a voice yelling for someone named Rick. My brother breathes into the phone, not panicked, just forced to decide too many things at once. I'll call you back, he says, and the line drops before I can answer. I stand there with the phone still at my ear for a second longer than necessary. Then I put it on the shelf and check the cameras again. Nothing on the road, nothing at the spring, nothing on the shelf. The worst part of waiting is how much empty space it gives your judgment. If I had driven into town the moment he called, I might have reached him. I might also have trapped myself on a clogged road 30 miles from the only defensible place I own. People make movies out of that choice. Real life does not reward whichever option feels noble. Real life counts fuel, distance, timing, and whether a dead stop on a county road leaves you boxed in by people who have already stopped thinking beyond the next 10 seconds. I stay where I am because I chose this place for the day when motion would be more dangerous than guilt. Night comes ugly and bright at the same time. The valley glows in places where it should be dark. More fires, one near the highway, one closer to town, and a wide orange smear where I think the mill yard sits. The radio finally says it plainly around 9. Violent incidents linked to an infectious condition, containment failures, emergency declaration, travel discouraged except for official movement. Discouraged. I almost laugh. The last time I heard that word used with that much cowardice, a dam operator was trying to describe water coming over a spillway that had never seen that volume before. I kill the interior lights and sit on the stool under the slit window with a red lens flashlight beside me. Sound carries differently at night in the canyon. I can hear engines strain from farther out, the long idle of trucks with no place to go, the occasional pop that might be a transformer or a gunshot, dogs in the distance, then no dogs at all. Around midnight, headlights sweep across the lower road, bounce over brush, and stop at the washout. A pickup, old half-ton, 2 people in the cab, a third in the bed banging on the roof. I watch through the slit, then switch to the lower camera monitor to get a closer look. The man in the bed is not helping. He is smashing his palms on the cab roof, then raking at the rear window. The driver gets out, stumbles, shouts at him, and circles toward the back. The passenger door opens. A woman steps out with both hands over her mouth. The man in the bed jumps down and goes for the driver in a rush so sudden it looks rehearsed. The driver falls against the tailgate. The woman runs the wrong way, not away from both of them, but toward the washout, sees the drop too late, slips in the loose dirt, and lands hard on one knee. I put the monitor down, grab the rifle, and move to the slit. The driver gets up first. He is bleeding from the forearm and swinging wild. The other man keeps coming. Even at this distance, I can see the movement is wrong. Not fast in a trained way, not drunk in a loose way, just committed past reason. The woman crawls toward the culvert edge, looks up the canyon, and for 1 second her face points straight at my ledge. I do not think she sees me. I do think she sees there is nothing up here she can reach. The driver finally pulls a tire iron from the bed and brings it down once, then again, then backs away too late when the man gets hold of his jacket. I fire 1 round into the dirt 2 feet from them. The crack rolls through the canyon and both men jolt apart. The woman freezes. I work the bolt and shout, "Get back in the truck and leave!" The driver looks up now, spinning, trying to find where the voice came from. I am in shadow, he cannot place me. The other man tries to lunge again, loses balance, and goes to one knee. The driver hits him once more with the iron, and this time the body stays down. The woman is already at the cab, hauling the door open. The driver scrambles in after her. The engine turns twice before it catches. Gravel sprays. They reverse too hard, clip a stump, correct, and disappear down the road with one tail light out. The body by the washout does not move for a while. Then, a few minutes later, it does. Not much. One arm, a shoulder. Enough. I do not sleep the rest of the night. I keep watch until first light, then put the rifle down, drink cold coffee, and force myself to write notes. Time. Vehicle. One infected male. One driver with forearm wound. One female passenger. Both departed mobile. I do that because writing turns memory into evidence, and evidence is harder to lie to. By 6:30, the body near the washout is on its feet, swaying near the culvert, head turning at small sounds. It never looks up. It never studies the rock. It circles the same patch of road, wanders into brush, returns to the truck blood, loses interest, and drifts south. That settles another question without asking my permission. Whatever is happening does not always stop when a person falls. The next 2 days compress into labor. I move food from the outer lockers into the dry room and restack by shelf life, calories, and fuel cost to prepare. I cut cardboard inserts for the slit window, so light cannot leak when I use the monitor after dark. I unroll extra concertina wire below the ledge on the side, no camera covers well, and pin it under brush where boots will find it before eyes do. I seal one vent and reroute through the secondary baffle because smoke from the valley is starting to drift up at night. The radio carries less useful information with every hour. Numbers without context. Orders that assume roads still function. Advice to remain calm from people whose voices prove they are not. My brother never calls back. By the 4th morning, the county road below has gone mostly still. That would be reassuring if stillness meant safety. It does not. It means movement has thinned into smaller, meaner patterns. One ATV with 2 men and milk crates strapped to the back. A school bus with no markings and 6 people inside, all staring ahead. A sedan dragging a tarp from the trunk. A horse trailer pulled by a pickup moving so slowly, I can hear the engine fan. Once, near dusk, I watch 4 figures cross a hayfield in a straight line, not using the road at all. 2 carry rifles. 1 carries a child. The 4th keeps lagging and catching up. I do not use the scope long enough to see more. There is a point where looking becomes a way of pretending you are involved. I am not involved. That is the rule this shelter was built around. Seeing from here changes nothing unless they come up the road. On the 6th day, someone does. It is a sheriff's deputy in a marked SUV with 1 front fender torn off and 1 light bar dead. The vehicle stops 20 yards short of the washout. The door opens slow. A man in tan uniform gets out, 1 hand on the frame, the other pressed to his side. He stands there a second, scanning the ridge with the automatic habit of a man who has done it 1,000 times. Then his knees try to give, and he catches himself. He is hurt. That much shows even without magnification. Not frantic, not stumbling wrong. Hurt. He sees the washout and just stares at it. Then he sees the old concrete receiver for my bridge on the far edge. He knows what that means before he spots the bridge itself folded against my rock. I can tell by the way he turns and starts looking with care instead of desperation. I step to the slit. Stop where you are. He flinches, then looks up toward my voice. Need help, he says. He does not shout it. He speaks like a man already saving energy for later. With what kind of injury? Knife, he says after a pause. Left side. Yesterday. You alone? Now I am. That answer earns him 1 point for honesty. I keep the rifle low but ready and watch his hands. Lift your shirt. He does it with obvious effort. A field dressing is taped across his lower ribs. Dark blood at the edge, Not soaking through, but not clean either. Any bites? No. Anyone ride with you in the last hour? No. You were at the hospital? Jail transport first, then hospital, then neither place mattered. The canyon holds silence after that. He waits. I do not hurry. Shelter design is arithmetic long before it is morality. I have water for one, propane for one through winter if I am careful, stored medication based on one body, waste capacity based on one body. Even if he is clean, even if he lives, even if he turns out to be the best man in Oregon, adding him changes every calculation I spent 3 years building. A second person is not just another mouth. It is another schedule, another sound, another judgment, another person who knows where I am. If he dies inside, I have a body problem in a sealed structure with limited bleach and no margin for mistakes. That is the truth underneath every rescue fantasy. There's water in a blue can at the old culvert, I say. Bandage kit under it. Take both. His face does not change much, but something in it settles into the answer before I finish. You got room? I have supplies. That's not the same thing. He nods once, looks down, looks back up. Fair. I lower the can and the kit on a rope while keeping him in the slit. He takes them, drinks too fast, stops himself, drinks slower. Then he opens the kit, checks the contents, and gives a short breath through his nose that might be thanks or disappointment. There's a family at Walker Lane, he says. Woman and 2 kids, barn with red roof. The husband turned last night. She may still be there. I say nothing. He presses the dressing harder against his side, gets back in the SUV, and sits there for a full minute before the engine starts. When he turns the vehicle around, he almost goes over the soft shoulder. Then he catches it and drives away. I watch the road until the dust settles. That night, I do not write notes right away. I sit at the table with the deputy's words in the room and the unspoken part of them hanging over everything else. That I had the high ground, the supplies, the ability to help more than I did, and I chose the amount that cost me least. At dawn, I take the ATV. I bought it a year ago for moving materials up the lower road before I finished the bridge system. Small 4-wheel drive, quiet for what it is, no lights on unless I want them. I keep it in a camouflaged cut under a tarp and brush farther up the ridge, not at the shelter itself. I do not ride it for comfort. Engines announce patterns, and patterns get men killed. But Walker Lane sits 12 miles away across old timber roads and farm tracks, and if a woman with children is trapped in a barn with a dead husband somewhere on the property, waiting until tomorrow will not improve the situation. I leave before sunrise with a pack, bolt cutters, pry bar, water, 2 trauma kits, 1 suppressed carbine, and enough food for a day. The route takes me north through basalt shelves, then east along an abandoned logging spur where grass already grows through the track. Everything looks ordinary in the wrong way. Gates hanging open where ranchers never leave them open, cattle in a ditch with no one moving them. Irrigation pumps running full into one field and dead silent in the next. At a crossroads near the feedlot, I stop and shut the engine off to listen. Far off, maybe from town, one long burst of gunfire, then nothing. I start moving again. Walker Lane is not a lane anymore so much as a memory of one. Cottonwoods by a dry creek, 2 mailboxes down, 1 farmhouse, 1 barn, 1 collapsed loafing shed. Red roof on the barn, just like he said. I leave the ATV behind a windbreak and go in on foot. Front door of the house open, screen hanging from 1 hinge. No vehicle in the yard except a rusted flatbed. I call out once from behind the pump house. No answer. I go to the barn. The husband is in there, not alive in any useful sense. He is shut into a stock stall with baling twine looped through the latch and a feed trough jammed against the gate. He sees me and hits the wood hard enough to rattle dust from the rafters. One side of his face is bruised dark. There is dried blood on his shirt collar and dirt under his nails from clawing the boards. I do not stand close. I check the rest of the barn first. 2 kids huddled in the tack room. Girl around 10. Boy maybe 7. And their mother beside them with a shovel across her knees and eyes that have not blinked enough. She does not ask who I am. She asks, "Did the deputy send you?" "Yes." She nods once, as if that closes a transaction started hours ago. He said he'd come back with someone or not at all. We need to move now. The boy starts crying without sound. The girl reaches for a backpack. The mother stands too fast, catches herself and says, "He got sick yesterday morning. By noon he was trying to bite me. I locked him in there." She does not look toward the stall. I couldn't do the other part. I do not answer that either. I hand her 1 water bottle and tell the kids to keep close. No talking unless I ask. No running from the group. She listens because people under enough strain stop shopping around for better instructions. We are halfway to the windbreak when the husband gets free. The stall gate gives with a crack and slams open. The sound alone almost sends the boy running. I grab his pack and keep him on line while the mother turns, shovel up. Her husband comes out in a hard, crooked rush, stumbling on hay bales, hitting one post with his shoulder and not noticing. I fire once. He goes down at the barn threshold and stays there. The girl does not scream. She looks at him, then at me, then back at the ground where she places her feet. That is how fast the world changes when there is no room left for ordinary reactions. I do not bring them to my shelter. That choice is already made before we reach the ATV. Instead, I take them to a Forest Service snow survey cabin 8 miles north that I stocked last fall with stove fuel, blankets, canned stew, matches, and a spare battery pack because redundancy matters. The cabin is not secret, not hardened, and not meant for long stays, but it has a pump well, a wood stove, shutters I repaired myself, and enough distance from main roads that it may buy them time. The mother says her name is Dana. The kids are Miles and Aaron. When I unload the cabin, Dana looks at the shelves and then at me with a question she never says. I answer it anyway. "I can check on you when I can," I tell her. "I cannot stay. You live out here." "Yes." "You built somewhere." "Yes." She studies my face with a tired kind of anger that still has manners. "And you're not taking us?" No. For a second I expect an argument, a plea, accusation. Instead, she nods the way a person nods after touching a hot surface and finally believing it is hot. "Then tell me the truth," she says. "If someone comes to this cabin, do I let him in?" The answer is ugly because it is not stable. It changes with time of day, visible injuries, weather, supplies, numbers, sound outside, how tired she is, and whether Miles is coughing. I give her the only version that might survive contact with real hours. If he is alone and still talking like himself, you decide slow. If he has company, you decide fast. If he is already at the door when you decided too late. She absorbs that. Then she says thank you, because people will say thank you in the middle of ruin if you make the shape of help appear in front of them. I leave before the kids finish dividing the blankets. The trip back takes longer because my mind keeps trying to edit what happened into something cleaner. Rescue family. Move family to safe fallback location. Return to primary shelter. That is the neat version. The real version is I found children in a tack room with their dead father in the next stall. I killed him because he was already gone. I delivered them to a second-rate refuge because the place I trust most was never built to include anyone but me. I get back to the ridge near dark, cache the ATV, climb to the ledge, and stand with my hand on the outer handle without opening the door. The steel feels colder than it should. I keep seeing Dana's face when I said no. Not shocked, not hateful, just corrected. She had asked the wrong question of the wrong man. After that, my routines tighten again. I check the snow cabin every third day at dawn if weather and road movement allow it. Dana adapts faster than most people would. By the second visit, she has moved a dresser against the cabin door, cut shooting ports in the shutters with my handsaw, and boiled creek water in reserve, even though the well works. Miles stays quiet and watches everything. Erin talks when she feels safe and goes silent the moment something outside changes. Dana never asks where I live again. She does ask for nails, lamp oil, and a better radio. I bring what I can. I do not bring her to the shelter. 2 weeks into the outbreak, I notice tracks near the washout that are not mine. One set first, hiking boots, decent tread, careful placement. Then later, 2 sets mixed over the same ground. Someone came up the road, stopped at the washout, moved along the edge, and left. No one tried the climb. No one called out. That makes it worse. A desperate man asks. A patient man studies. I erase what I can, brush over the prints, relocate one camera, and spend the rest of the afternoon altering the visual shape of the approach. The bridge stays retracted. I drape more dead brush over the rock section where the lower stairs begin. I move one of my false trail markers 50 yards downhill, so a person tracking me will read the wrong line into the creek bed. Then I sit under the slit with the monitor and wait for the next move. It comes 3 nights later. A flashlight blinks twice near the washout just after midnight. Deliberate, not panicked. Another answers from farther back on the road. Then voices, too low to catch words. I leave the monitor on, kill every other light, and move into the battery room where I wired a second mic and speaker months ago for testing a perimeter alarm I never finished. The speaker box is hidden in a rusted culvert section near the road. I press the switch and say, "Road is washed out. Move on." Silence below. Then one man laughs. "We know it's washed out." I do not answer. Another voice. Younger, sharper. "We just want to talk." No one wants to talk at midnight in a dead county road. They want confirmation. Number of voices, direction, accent, tone, whether I sound old, tired, sick, alone. I keep quiet. Their lights move along the washout edge, stop, move again. One beam finds the concrete bridge receiver. Another catches on the brush hiding the lower steps and lingers too long. I hear a man scraping at dirt with his boot. Then the younger voice again. "You got water up there?" I switch the mic back on, leave. He answers by firing one shot into the dark above the washout. Blind, testing for return fire, testing range, testing nerve. The round hits nowhere near the ledge, but rock chips tick off the slope below me. I stay still. That costs me something I do not enjoy paying. Every part of me wants to end the question while I still own surprise, but noise carries. Gunfire announces value. A disciplined man who does not know enough is sometimes safer than a dead man with friends nearby. who now know exactly where to come back. After a minute, the beams move off. Engine noise follows. A TV, not truck. Then nothing. I do not sleep. At sunrise, I take the far ridge trail instead of the road, loop behind the lower bend, and find where they parked. 2 ATVs, 3 men. 1 woman, judging by boot size and track weight, though I never see her. They were loaded light and left in a hurry. I also find what 1 man dropped, a candy wrapper from the town gas station and a cigarette butt still fresh enough that the paper has not fully swollen from dew. Local, not travelers. That narrows the problem. I stop going to Dana's cabin for 4 days, not because I forget her, because my movement pattern may already be compromised, and I will not lead hunters to the only people I have actively helped. That decision sits even worse than the first one. I leave a supply bucket buried near the halfway marker instead. Flour, beans, lamp oil, batteries, 1 note in pencil wrapped in tape. Keeping still. Watch north. 3 nights later, the bucket is gone and a new note sits under the rock. Cabin secure. Smoke seen near river. Thank you. Dana writes block letters like someone trying not to waste lead. September turns the valley brittle. Brown grass, low creek. Wind by noon almost every day. I spend hours on maintenance because breakdown is one of the few enemies I can still influence. Clean panel glass before the dust cakes hard. Grease the bridge pivot. Backflush the spring line. Rotate canned stock. Repack the med kit after using half the tape on my own split knuckle from slipping with a pry bar. Loneliness has edges when the work stops, so I keep work in front of me. I also start using the ham set more, not broadcasting widely, just listening first, then answering only stations that sound disciplined. One of them belongs to a woman calling from a fire lookout tower somewhere east of Ukiah. She uses the name Helen because real names are optional when the map has collapsed. Former wildland dispatcher, former volunteer EMT, now alone at a tower she reached because it had water, elevation, shutters, and a locked supply shed. Her voice is level and spare. No dramatic pauses, no fishing for sympathy. First night we connect, she asks what my water security is and whether I have a second egress. That tells me more about her than any life story would. Single primary access, I tell her. Rock shelter, 1 approach. That's good until it isn't, she says. I know. You caching downhill? Yes. Then you already know. We talk in short blocks every few nights after that. Fire conditions, road movement. A clinic in 1 town burned. A feed store in another was cleaned out and then abandoned because the roof started leaking and everyone fought over the driest corner. A church group tried to move 30 people in a caravan and made it 2 counties before fuel and rumor tore them apart. None of this surprises either of us. Surprise is mostly for people still clinging to normal scale. Once the shape of failure is clear, details vary but behavior stays familiar. October begins with the first hard test of the shelter itself. A dry storm comes over the ridge at dawn. Wind first, then dust. Then one of those cold, violent bursts that throws dead branches sideways and makes everything mechanical sound inadequate. I am outside securing the panel braces when a gust takes the top tarp off the fuel cache and sends it sailing into the wash. I go after it because loose tarp means shiny cans, and shiny cans mean notice. Halfway down the ledge, a branch the thickness of my wrist comes off the pine above and slams into the spring line box. Water sprays across the rock. I drop the tarp, haul myself up, and shut the intake valve before the line empties the cistern backward through the break. For the next 4 hours, I am on the slope in harness, knee braced against wet stone, cutting out split pipe, installing a bypass section, and cursing every shortcut I did not take, because I do not take shortcuts. That is the worst part. The failures that come anyway are harder to swallow when you know you built carefully. By noon, the wind has shoved smoke from somewhere west, down into the canyon, and I can barely see the washout through brown air. Then the monitor inside catches movement. 3 figures at the lower road, then a 4th. I lock the utility hatch, grab the rifle, and get to the slit. Not infected. Men. 2 carrying long guns, 1 carrying a red fuel can, 1 with a coil of rope over his shoulder. They stop at the washout and begin studying the slope with the plain confidence of people who expect solutions. I should have moved that tarp sooner. Even if they never saw the fuel, even if they only followed the track patterns, they are here with rope because they already believe there is something to reach. The man with the rope starts down into the wash to test the far bank. I fire a round into the dirt near his boots. He scrambles back fast, less brave than he looked from above. The others spread out, not in any trained formation, but not stupid either. One takes cover behind the old culvert section and shouts, "We're not here for trouble." I almost answer that trouble does not need an invitation, but I save the breath. Another voice, older, the one behind the culvert. "Well, trade fuel." That gets my attention because men who offer trade first think they have time to negotiate. Men who think they have time usually know more than one route, more than one target, or more than one day's worth of patience. I say nothing. The younger man edges right, trying to catch angle on the ledge. I put a round through the fuel can he carried. Diesel spills black into the dust. He jumps back, swearing. That changes the tone. Now I hear what they were holding under their words all along. The younger one shouts, "You got enough to waste shots and fuel? Then you got enough to share." The older one says, "Easy, but not to me. To his own. That matters." I stay inside the slit and speak only once. You cross the wash, and I start dropping rock. That is not a bluff. I drilled 2 pin supports under a loose slab above the lower steps last year when freeze-thaw opened a crack. Pulling the pins would send 800 pounds of fractured basalt down onto the approach and bury half the stair line. Clearing it later would take me days, but if I need the road denied, denied is denied. The standoff lasts 20 minutes. Wind, smoke, men shifting behind brush, one of them calling me selfish, another saying maybe I am already dead in there and some sensor is firing a speaker. In the end, what moves them is not argument. It is a distant gunshot from the valley followed by another, closer, and then the sound every person in the hills has learned to respect whether the world is normal or not. A brush fire moving fast through dry ground. Smoke thickens. Embers start falling on the road. The older man barks at the rest to mount up. They leave without promise or apology. I wait until their engine noise disappears, then spend the rest of the day cutting back brush around the ledge, wetting my fire break trench, and moving spare filters into the inner room. That night, Helen comes over the radio after 2 missed windows. Her signal is weak and ragged. "Tower took sparks," she says. "Had to dump water on the stairs. You still secure?" "For now." "Have you seen movement on the East Road?" "Group in 2 trucks, 1 horse trailer, headed north. No lights. No discipline." I tell her about my visitors. She is quiet a moment, then says, "Once a place is known, it changes category." I know. "You planning to stay static anyway?" "I built for static," You built for undiscovered. She is right. I do not say so because wasting words on agreement never improved a plan. But after the radio window closes, I sit with the map and start marking new caches farther out. The shelter is still strong. It is no longer pure. Pure means secret, plus defensible. Now it is only defensible. By mid-October, Dana's cabin has its own problem. On my next check, I find the shutters closed, but no smoke from the flue. I circle twice before approaching. Aaron answers the prearranged knock. Dana opens the door with the shotgun tucked low but ready. Miles has a fever from a cut on his shin he got splitting wood. Not infected. The wound is clean enough, but bad enough that he needs antibiotics I did not leave there. He sits under 3 blankets trying hard not to look sick. Dana says it is probably nothing. Her eyes say she has already counted how fast probably stops meaning anything now. The nearest reliable antibiotics I know of sit in the locked supply room of a veterinary clinic on the south edge of town. That is not ideal for children or adults, but broad spectrum is broad spectrum. And I know the place because I installed a backup monitor system there 2 summers ago. There is a steel cabinet in the rear room and a keypad most looters would smash before trying. Smash would not help. It deadbolts from the side. I know the code. I also know town is worse every week, and my access path may still be under watch. This is where shelter math collides with a different set of numbers. If I go, I risk bringing trouble back. If I do not go, a boy in a cabin bleeds infection into bad timing and maybe dies because I chose a stronger wall over a larger circle. I leave for town before dawn the next day. No ATV this time. Too loud, too trackable. I go on foot by drainage ditch, fence line, and a rail spur half buried in tumbleweed. The outskirts look abandoned in the way cities do after several rounds of leaving. Not empty. Stripped. Windows broken long ago. Storefronts already searched twice. A church van with flat tires. Grocery carts out in the road where no one bothered to gather them because gathering them belongs to a different calendar. I slip behind the old tire shop, cut through the alley, and stop at every blind corner before exposing half a shoulder. Sound carries wrong in built places after enough glass is gone. A cough 2 blocks away can feel nearby. A can rolling inside a drain pipe can sound like a footstep. The veterinary clinic still has its side door shut. Good sign. Bad sign too. Untouched places draw attention the moment someone notices them. I punch the keypad under my jacket to mask movement, wait for the latch, and slip inside. Smell hits first. Stale air, chemical cleaner, spoiled insulation from a failed mini-fridge. No bodies, no movement. The cabinet opens on the first try. I take antibiotic bottles, syringes, sterile water, dressings, and 2 small oxygen cylinders I do not want to carry but regret leaving if I do. Then I hear voices outside. Not many. 2 men. Close. I kill the headlamp and crouch behind the counter. One man rattles the door and says, "Locked." The other says, "Back probably ain't." Bootsteps move away. I have about 20 seconds before back becomes true. I grab the pack, move down the exam hall, and push the rear window unit I loosened on a previous service call straight out into the alley. It hits gravel hard enough to sound like a gunshot to anyone unready. I go through after it, land badly on my left ankle, catch the wall, and keep moving because pain is only useful when you have time to negotiate with it. The alley opens onto the lot behind a shuttered laundromat. One infected comes out from behind a dumpster the moment the window crashes. Old woman in a housecoat, dry dirt on both knees. moving with that direct, uneven commitment I know too well now. I shove her into the fence line instead of firing, cut across the lot, and hear the men at the clinic shouting to one another. They do not know if I am one person or three. Good. I duck through the laundromat's broken side door, out the front, across the street, and into a drainage channel choked with weeds. One of the men fires blind over the concrete lip. Chips spit down on me. Then something better than luck happens. A siren starts somewhere toward downtown. Short burst. Then another. Some timer or dying battery finally deciding to matter. The sound pulls, infected the way dropped metal pulls eyes. I use the confusion, stay low, and do not stop until the rail spur is under my boots again and town is behind me. By the time I reach Dana's cabin, my ankle has stiffened and my pack straps have cut trenches into my shoulders. Miles swallows the first dose without complaint. Dana watches my face while I explain interval, water, and wound cleaning. She knows enough to hear what I do not say, that I went somewhere bad and brought back just enough to keep the next decision deferred. When she takes the second bottle from my hand, our fingers touch and she says, "You should stay until dark." No. You're limping. I'm moving slower, not worse. She almost argues, then doesn't. She has learned the same lesson I have in different clothing. Wanting company and needing the door secure are not the same thing. I leave before sunset and take a longer route home to check whether I was trailed. Nothing obvious. Nothing obvious means less every week. Helen stops answering the radio after that. First I think weather, then damaged equipment, then relocation. On the fourth missed window, I climb to the high knoll east of the spring with the directional antenna and try every agreed frequency +2 we never used. Static. One preacher in another state, a trucker's half-broken relay, then silence. I tell myself silence means range, not death. Then I see smoke on the eastern horizon where her tower line should be, and I stop pretending. A lookout tower is a strong place until fire or men decide the stairs matter more than the view. I sit up there until dark without the radio on, looking at the stain on the horizon and thinking about how a voice can become part of your structure without you admitting it. Once she is gone, the nights lengthen again. The first snow hits early in the high ground and melts by noon in the valley. Good warning, bad timing. Cold improves food storage, decreases smell, slows rot. It also forces everyone still alive into tighter patterns around heat, fuel, and walls. Tight patterns create contact. Contact creates stories. Stories create roots. The root to me is still hard, but hard and impossible are no longer brothers. The group from the washout comes back in November with a better plan. I see the first sign on camera too just after sunrise. A mirror flash from the opposite slope, too deliberate for accident. Then a second one lower down. Spotters. Half an hour later, smoke starts rising from the brush pile at the bottom of the wash. Not wildfire this time, controlled burn, green limbs mixed in to thicken it. Someone down there thinks he can force me to run fans, expose vents, or step outside with a rifle so he can map the line. I shut the primary intake, switch to filtered recirculation, and move the battery back up to the fan controller. Then I see a figure edging up the dry side channel north of the road, not toward the washout, toward the spring line. That gets immediate action. I go out the utility crawl, belly under the overhang, and cut across the upper slope where the rock hides me. The man at the spring line is young, narrow-shouldered, maybe 19, maybe 30, ruin evens ages out. He is carrying bolt cutters and working at the mesh cover over the valve box. Not a random looter. Someone told him water comes from here. If he cuts the line, he does not just threaten comfort. He threatens the whole premise. I get within 20 yards before he realizes the hillside has changed shape, and that shape is me. Drop it, I say. He does. Fast. Hands up, eyes wide, face full of the sort of fear that appears after a man notices he has mistaken distance for safety. I didn't know you were up here, he says. That is why you're still standing. I just want water. There it is again. Want. The cleanest lie because it is also true. He wants water and access, and whatever comes after confirming there is a system on this slope worth taking. Who told you about the spring? He says nothing. I take one step closer. The next answer decides whether you walk back. He swallows and finally says, Toby. Toby who? He jerks his chin toward the road below. Guy with the red beard. Said there's a concrete room in the rock. Said one man can't use all of it. That sentence lands harder than the gunfire ever did. Not because he is wrong about volume, because he is wrong about function. People see stored goods and assume excess. They do not count winter, spoilage, breakage, weather, sickness, dry months, blocked roads, or the cost of replacing one missing part when the old supply chain is a corpse. Turn around, I tell him. Hands on your head. Walk downhill. He obeys. I move him to the edge where the smoke from their brush fire drifts low across the road. 4 of them below, maybe 5. One definitely the older man, another with a red beard. Toby, apparently. They look up when we appear on the slope. No one shoots because now they can see the angle favors me. Your man cut my waterline cover? I call down. The next step up this road gets him sent back minus a lesson. Redbeard raises his hands, palms out. He's just a kid with bolt cutters. We need water and a place for 2 families. And I need you gone. He laughs once, tired, not amused. You got 1 room up there, maybe 2. Maybe enough food for a year. You're saving it all for what, old age? I could tell him about Dana and the kids, about caches, about nights spent under filters while men I did not invite lit smoke fires below my home. Instead, I say the only thing he might understand. I am saving it for continuity. You are asking me to trade continuity for a crowd I cannot control. The older man below finally speaks. He means you don't trust anybody, correct, but not complete. I let the kid go downhill 1 step at a time. When he reaches the road, Redbeard grabs his shoulder and yanks him back too hard. Anger runs downhill fast in groups. It takes effort to keep one weak link from ruining the posture of reason. Redbeard looks up again and shouts, "This place is going to burn you out sooner or later." Maybe, I say. Not today. I pull the retaining pins on the slab as soon as they are clear of the lower steps. The rock comes down exactly the way I hoped, and exactly the way I dreaded. A hard, cracking release. 1 huge block first, then a grinding spill of stone and dust that buries the lower stair line under a waist-high mess of basalt. The sound throws echoes across the canyon and sends the whole group running back from the wash. No one gets hit. Good. I did not want bodies under the approach, but the message lands clean. The easy climb is gone. Clearing that route under fire would take hours. In 1 pull, I trade convenience for denial. That afternoon, I relocate half my essential stores into 2 separate hide caches on the upper ridge. Not because I plan to abandon the shelter tonight, because now there is no version of responsible that leaves all value in one known whole. I move freeze-dried food, ammo, water filters, antibiotics, hand tools, maps, socks, stove fuel, and a second radio under cold hands and fading light until my back feels filled with sand. When I finally sit, it is in the dark with no dinner made and my boots still on. This is what changing category looks like. A stronghold becoming only one node in a system of retreat. 2 days later, Dana's note does not appear at the halfway rock. On the third day, I go to the cabin myself. The door is shut. No smoke, no sound. I circle wide. Tracks everywhere, old and new. Boot churn, dragged scuffs, a snapped shutter hinge. Inside, the place looks stripped in patches. Not looted all at once. Searched by people with little time. Dresser shoved aside. One blanket left. The stove ash cold. No blood on the floor, no bodies. On the table, weighted under a mug, Dana left one sheet torn from a seed catalog. Miles worse. Men came, took food, said road north clear, left before dawn, going to the sawmill camp. Thank you for trying, that is all. I stand in the cabin until full dark, reading 6 words harder than the rest. Thank you for trying. Not thank you for saving us. Not thank you for coming back. Just trying. Accurate, brutal, fair. The sawmill camp lies 15 miles north in a bowl of pines with 3 bunkhouses, 1 maintenance shed, and an old fuel yard I would never choose as a refuge, unless weather or exhaustion chose first. I could go after them. I could also walk straight into the kind of temporary settlement that forms around exactly 3 things: false authority, shared fear, and short food. I weigh it for an hour. In the end, I do not go. Not because I stop caring, because caring without leverage is a way men disappear. If Dana made it there with the kids, my arrival could help or ruin everything depending on who else holds the gate. If she did not make it there, I would be searching a dead grid for ghosts while my own position decays behind me. Snow comes for real the next week. Not deep at first. Enough to show tracks, mute brush, and make every dark thing on the ground worth a second look. Cold changes the infected too. They still move, but slower in the morning until sun works on them. More important, cold changes the living into creatures of smoke and supply. Every column on the horizon means people. Every people means either discipline or hunger. Sometimes both. I stay tighter to the shelter and use the rifle less because sound travels farther in clear cold. One evening, just before dark, I see a single figure at the washout, wrapped in a blanket coat, moving with care and no visible weapon. I watch through the slit for a full minute before recognizing the posture. Dana. She looks thinner. The boy is not with her. Neither is Aaron. She stands at the edge of the wash and does not call up right away. When she finally does, her voice carries clean in the cold air. I know you're there. I open the speaker, not the door. You came alone? Yes, why? She looks at the buried lower steps, then up toward my ledge. Miles is dead, she says, no break in the voice. Just fact, not the fever. Men at the camp fought over diesel. 1 truck left at night. He was outside when the shooting started. Aaron and I got out. I put her with a woman heading east to family. I came here. Nothing in the canyon moves for a while. I can hear ice ticking off branches as the temperature drops. You shouldn't be on this road after dark, I say. I know. Why come back here? Because I know what you are. I almost shut the speaker off at that. Not from anger, from recognition. Say it. You're not cruel, she says. You're exact. I let that sit. One of the few times in my life someone has managed to insult and understand me with the same sentence. "What do you want, Dana?" "Rest," she says. "One night with a door I trust. Then I leave in the morning. There is no safe answer to that. One night becomes weather. Weather becomes injury. Injury becomes winter. Winter becomes permanent. But one night is also just one night. And she came back alone. Which means whatever else remains of her judgment, it still includes not bringing a crowd to my road. I think about Miles dead outside some fuel fight. I think about Erin walking east with strangers because her mother decided splitting the last thing she had left was better than keeping both children in the same danger. I think about continuity, the word I used from the ledge like it could keep blood from appearing on the map. "Step back from the washout," I say. She does. I lower a rope ladder into the cut, not the bridge. That matters. The bridge says arrival. The ladder says exception. She climbs slowly, once slipping on frozen dirt, once stopping to cough into her sleeve. When she reaches the ledge, I keep her outside under the overhang while I check her hands, face, clothing, and pack for blood, bites, hidden surprises, whatever else ruin teaches a man to search for. She stands through it without complaint. Inside, when the steel door closes behind us, she does not look around like a person entering treasure. She looks around like a person entering evidence. The shelter feels smaller the moment there are 2 mugs on the table. I give her the wash space first. Hot water from the propane heater, 5 minutes only. Then clean clothes from storage, an old flannel shirt, socks, thermal pants I kept from a contract site locker. She leaves her own clothes bagged near the outer door without me asking. Good sign. I heat stew. She eats half, stops, and says if she keeps going, she will lose it. Another good sign. People who still know their limits are easier to keep alive. We talk little. She tells me Erin reached the East Road with the woman and her grown son. She does not know if that was enough. She tells me the sawmill camp had 30 people for 1 week and too much arguing by the second day. She tells me men there kept talking about a rock shelter in the canyon that one selfish engineer had stocked for the end of the world. So the story spread. Also useful. She sleeps on the floor mat in the work alcove with a blanket over her and one hand still resting on the borrowed shotgun until sometime after midnight. I do not sleep much. Every small sound becomes new because there is a witness to it. The fan cycle, the tick of the heater shell, her cough, the different weight of silence when it is shared. I thought company would feel like intrusion first. It feels like instability, not because she does anything wrong, but because my entire structure has been tuned for one set of footsteps and one pattern of thought. Even decent company bends that. By morning, the question has sharpened instead of faded. Dana sits at the table drinking coffee from the blue enamel mug and says it before I do. I can't stay. I set another log on the propane stove, though it does not need one. Habit reaching for delay. You came for one night. I came because I wanted to see if there was any space left in the world that still made sense. She glances at the wall shelves, the labeled bins, the notebook by the radio, the boots lined sole out to dry. There is, but not for me, not long term. You could stay a few days, recover. And then what? She asks. You start counting the rice different. You stop sleeping. Every sound outside gets judged twice because one of us might want to help and one of us might want the door shut. I already know how that ends. She is right again. I hate that, because it removes the comfort of pretending sacrifice would have failed for mysterious reasons. No, it would fail for obvious ones. Small room logic, resource math. Two adults with recent losses and incompatible instincts, eventually testing every decision against opposite values until the shelter itself becomes the third enemy in the room. I pack her food for 6 days, a map strip with 2 routes east, water tabs, antibiotics, and the .38 revolver from my truck kit with 12 rounds wrapped in cloth. She watches me do it without ceremony. At the door she says, "You can still choose to be more than this place." I look past her toward the white slope and the broken stair line under snow. I chose this place because I knew exactly what people become when systems fail. "No," she says. "You chose it because you knew what you become." Then she leaves. I lower the rope ladder. She climbs down. I pull it back up. She never looks up again on the road out. After Dana, something in me stops pretending survival and isolation are the same profession. They overlap. They are not the same. Isolation is simpler. It asks only whether the wall holds. Survival asks whether the wall holding is enough. The answer changes with every person you turn away and every person you half help. I stop using the word exact in my own head because exact has started sounding clean when none of this is clean. December settles in hard. Snow on the north slopes stays. The lower road disappears some mornings under drift and shadow. That helps. Cold denies casual movement. It also magnifies planning errors. I spend 2 days rebuilding the lower stair line enough for emergency use from my side only, using removable planks and anchor points hidden under snow crust. I extend the ridge caches. I lay false sign farther south, boot prints leading nowhere, a dead-end tarp shelter, an old coffee can with stale food wrappers. Let seekers spend energy on the wrong absences. Once, near Christmas by old calendars, I hear voices below and do not answer. Once I see 3 infected trapped in creek ice up to the knee, still clawing at anything that moves, and I put them down from 50 yards, because leaving them there means their noise becomes a marker. Once I find one of my outer caches disturbed by raccoons and laugh out loud inside the trees, because after months of human threat, an animal chewing through plastic feels almost decent. My beard gets longer. My nails stay trimmed because sloppiness is contagious if you let it start. I still listen to the radio every night. Fewer stations now. More dead air. More men trying to sound like leaders from rooms that probably smell like kerosene and damp coats. In January, the group from the washout makes one final mistake. I see Red Beard first, Toby beside him, and another man dragging a plastic sled of cut brush. No smoke this time. No bluff trade offers. They come after a fresh snowfall, probably thinking my sight lines are worse in white glare and my movement slower in cold. They also come on foot, which means supplies are low enough now that fuel for a vehicle is too expensive to waste on uncertain theft. They push farther up the road than before because the snow dampens sound and gives false confidence. Red Beard reaches the edge of the buried stair line and starts probing with a shovel handle. Toby hangs back with a rifle he does not know how to carry well. I could warn them off again. I could waste another afternoon trading certainty for delay. Instead, I take the loudspeaker and say, "Toby, you step 1 foot onto that cut and I drop you first." The effect is immediate. Name breaks posture faster than bullets sometimes. Toby stumbles back, scanning wildly. Red Beard looks up, sees nothing, and finally understands what all the others failed to learn. The advantage here is not supplies. It is information. He has never known what I can see. I have known exactly what he could not. Back down the road, I tell them. Leave the shovel. He raises his rifle halfway, then stops. Even from above, I can see calculation failing in him. Hunger, anger, pride, exhaustion, months of hearing about one stocked hole in the rock while his own world narrows to scraps and frozen mornings. "You let a woman in," he shouts. So someone at the sawmill talked, or Dana was seen, or rumor did what rumor does and made truth from fragments. For one night. And not us. No. He actually laughs then. Not because it is funny, because some men laugh when the last version of the world they told themselves finally falls apart. "You think you're better than us. I think you came here with a shovel. That ends it." He fires once at the speaker. The round smashes metal and throws sparks. At the same moment, I fire from the slit and put a round through the snow 1/2 foot from his lead boot. Toby drops the rifle and falls backward on the road. The third man runs without waiting for orders. Red Beard stands 1 second too long, trying to decide whether dignity exists under fire. Then he turns and goes. I follow their retreat on camera until the road bends out of view. Then I sit down on the floor with the broken speaker hissing static and understand something simple. No one who knows this road will ever stop wondering what remains up here. Today I won because range, angle, and winter all favored me. Next month, maybe someone comes at night with fire in 2 places. In spring, maybe enough men come with rope and patience. The shelter still works. The myth of the shelter has become a liability. So I make the hardest practical choice since the day I refused the deputy. I begin dismantling my own home. Not all at once. Not theatrically. I do not blow charges and walk away from flames. I strip function and distribute it. Over 3 weeks, I move dry goods to ridge caches and a second hidden room I cut under a fallen slab farther north. I remove the most valuable tools, the comms gear, half the battery bank, all medical stock, optics, and every map with markings. I leave enough in the main shelter that a raider who eventually reaches it will think he found something real, but not enough that finding it changes my future. I weld the inner pantry door shut from the inside after emptying it, then cover the seam with shelving so it looks untouched. I rig the generator compartment to fail loud and dirty if started without opening the hidden bypass valve. I pull the regulator off the main propane manifold. I bury the bridge sections in 2 separate snow pits upslope. Piece by piece, the fortress becomes a shell around a smaller life already moving elsewhere. On the last night, I sleep in the original room. I sit at the table with one lamp on low and listen to the quiet I spent years building. Nothing dramatic. Fan hum, stove click, wind rubbing snow off the overhang. I run my hand along the concrete wall and remember mixing the first batch in a borrowed drum while rain worked down my collar. I remember hauling rebar alone because I did not want hired help learning the approach. I remember thinking control was the same as safety. Control matters. It is not the same thing. At dawn, I sweep the floor, wash the mug, and write 1 page in the notebook I have kept since the first alert repeated on the radio. Not confession, not apology. Inventory of conditions. What failed first? What held? Which roads died fastest? Which people adapted? Where water still ran in deep freeze? How smoke traveled in the canyon? Which rumors had enough truth inside them to hurt? Useful things. A man who survives by observation owes the next observer at least a clean record. Then I close the steel door from the outside and walk north with a sled behind me. My new place is smaller and worse in every way except one. No story exists about it. No group has pointed at a slope and said there is a room in that rock with food enough for old age. It is a crawl chamber under a basalt overhang with insulation tucked behind salvaged timber. One narrow vent, one buried cache at the rear, and no comfort worth coveting. I can live there because I built the rest of my system before I needed it. The old shelter remains 3 miles south as a decoy, fallback, and warning to my former self. I still pass above the washout sometimes and look down. In late February, I see tracks leading to the old ledge. Several men, one woman, one dog. They reach the door. They get inside. They stay a day, maybe 2. Then they leave. I never learn whether they cursed the stripped shelves or counted themselves lucky for the roof. Both reactions would be fair. By March, the valley has less smoke and more tilled patches. Small ones, careful ones. Enough to mean some people lasted through winter and have started gambling on seasons again. I hear 2 new radio stations with better manners and worse lies. I answer neither. Once, at sundown, a child's voice comes over open frequency asking if anyone near the river has clean bandages. I think of Dana, of Miles, of the deputy at the washout, of every choice made on thin facts and thinner margins. Then I key the mic, give directions to a cache I left near the old rail spur, and release before any conversation can start. That is where I am now. Not redeemed, not broken open into some simpler man, just corrected. The world did burn in the ways that count, not all at once, not cleanly, piece by piece. Trust first, then movement, then scale, then the assumption that somebody else will handle the thing coming down the road. I saw enough of that early to cut a shelter into rock where no crowd could gather. I was right about the road, the crowd, the value of height, water, and a door no one could reach without my permission. I was wrong about what surviving inside that permission would cost. So I keep moving within a smaller circle now. One man, several caches, no myth worth chasing. I still carry the keys to the first shelter, even though the lock they fit matters less every day. Habit, maybe. Memory. Evidence that I once believed the problem could be solved by building far enough away from everyone else. Distance helps, until it becomes its own hunger. Control helps, until the world starts asking what it is for. Morning is coming up over the ridge while I finish this in my head. Pale light on dirty snow. Raven tracks near the sled. Frost on the rifle sling where I leaned it against the rock. Down in the canyon, the old road sits empty for now. Empty means only empty. I do not ask more of it than that. In an hour, I will check the spring, reset one snare, clean the stovepipe, and move the bandage cache closer to the river because someone out there asked for help in a voice too young to fake steady. I will not invite the world in, I know better than that. But I know something else now too. A shelter built for one man can keep him alive, and still leave him with work that has nothing to do with walls.